Springfield's Talk 1041 and a good Tuesday morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed. Hope you're all doing pretty darn good already. As we got a little rain in the forecast, should continue to see it through this cool day. I think temperatures have pretty much peaked out already, but we'll get that full first alert forecast coming up here in just a couple of moments. Yesterday, former President Obama putting out what I think is accurately being described as a cringe video announcing the opening of his presidential library. And this is a library, if you're not familiar with it, has long been mocked because of, well, the standard over expenses and, tapping elites to make six figures to run it while insisting peons work for free to actually run the day-to-day operations of things. And it looks ugly. I mean, it's just straight up ugly. And it has been likened to something you would see from the dark side of Star Wars. Just very drab, very blockish and gray. It's just, it's ugly. And apparently deciding to lean into that, announcing the official opening, which is going to happen on Juneteenth, because Obama's black. Mark Hamill, who, of course, is a nut job left-winger, not just a normal left-winger. He's one of those that has he's crazy. He's crazy. And so the two of them joined together to make an announcement yesterday, because, yesterday was May the 4th be with you. That's this sort of a Star Wars day. If you're not familiar with it, May 4th is a playoff of May the Force be with you, May the 4th be with you. And it's a day to sort of recognize and celebrate Star Wars stuff. And so they decided to put out a couple of different videos promoting the opening of the presidential library. We'll play some of that audio. It's just, I'm sometimes surprised they still can't find a single person in the Democrat Party to run this stuff by that says, yeah, no, don't. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world when you've seen some of the videos Democrats have put out. You can tell they're trying to be relevant, trying to go viral, trying to be cool. But it's pretty bad. And, Mark Hamill, of course, isn't much better in it. So we've got that coming up. Also, I wanted to play a story for you that is a local story regarding Webster County, but it is a story that many local communities are finding themselves grappling with, and that's data centers. The attempt to build data centers, and increasingly a lot of communities not wanting the data centers. And the Webster County is looking at the potential of a data center being built. And the way Webster County is set up, really the county itself doesn't have any jurisdiction to say yay or nay on this. It isn't something that they have the ability to approve or disapprove, apparently. And so a lot of people in the community are none too happy about this. And there's a change.org page up pushing back against this. And there's actually going to be a town hall meeting in Marshfield tonight regarding this. And there have been a number of these, again, not just in Missouri, but popping up across the country, in which these data centers are facing a great deal of pushback from local communities. And much of it has to do with the drain on power structures. I think there's also a lot of unknown components to this. You do have the, if you want to call it, fear factor of AI itself, but it's just the drain on power. And as we have seen our country, particularly in certain portions of the country, become less efficient when it comes to power, all in the name of green energy. Already we have done some damage to our ability to be able to rely on energy in the capacity we did once upon a time, and then you put some massive new strain on it, and people they grow concerned about this. And there are other concerns as well that people have, and like I said, a lot of it's just the unknown. So that is something that those of you in Webster County are going to be facing. KY3 did a story a couple days ago on this, so I'm just going to play their story for you coming up here in just a bit. Also, like I mentioned, we do have that weather right now. The latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see showers and thunderstorms possible throughout the day, with a temperature falling to around 55 by 3 p.m. Tonight, showers likely with a low around 44. For your Wednesday, scattered showers mainly before 1 p.m. and then mostly cloudy with a high near 57. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 65.
I dressed for this afternoon.
There you
for
go.
the 55 weather.
Did not.
I did deliberately.
I wore a tank top.
But you wore what?
I wore a tank top because I'm a fool.
I thought you said TikTok. What is a TikTok?
No, I wore a tank top, but I do have a cardigan, so I'm somewhat prepared.
Right. Well, I'm just a couple degrees away from removing the outer layer because I'm feeling a little warm.
There is an inner layer, right?
There is an inner layer.
Yes,
there is. And not just a standard undershirt. See, I prepared for this. I put a KSGF shirt under this should I find myself warm in the studio this morning. And so we may just be dealing with that. So everyone knows.
I'll allow it.
Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. Rumors of data center in Webster County sparking community concern. Now, this is a KY3 story from a couple of days ago. And there's just a lot of, anytime you talk about data centers, there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of I don't want to say misinformation, but assumptions that get made about what data centers are and aren't. And that really feeds into a great deal of concerns when you're talking about some sort of massive infrastructure that is going to potentially be put out on a parcel of land in the county, and this is increasingly happening. I know Joplin has had a lot of pushback at potential data centers. There are calls in a number of states. Missouri is one of them, to put a moratorium on data centers. There was one state that was even voting, if I recall, to put it in their constitution that there couldn't be data centers built, and there may have been caveats to it. But the point being is that there's just a lot of people that have concerns about this, and then you throw in a potential AI component, and people get worried about that sort of thing and how it's related, and so there's just a whole lot that goes on here with this, and it doesn't seem to help that when these data centers appear almost ready to pop up, it comes as a surprise. People infer from that they're trying to sneak in. And whether that's fair or not, when people become suspicious that somebody's trying to sneak in and do something quietly like this, that just adds to any sort of concern that may be there. And this is a story about Webster County, just north of Marshfield, and a potential data center there from
Springfield news of the day. Smothered in quality journalism.
Oh, sorry, there's a preview.
A data center could be coming to Webster County just outside of Marshfield city limits, and it has people in the community talking.
Some have even reached out to KY3 News with their concerns. Adam Woodbray has details tonight.
Anger, what's it going to do to our home values? What's it going to do to our livestock? What's it going to do for our kids?
Aaron Quella isn't mincing words after he began hearing about a data center potentially being built not far from his home on Rifle Range Road, just north of Marshfield.
Moved out here for my family and to get away from all that, and knowing that it could be coming on my back door is a frightening thing.
He says he first heard about it from neighbors about a week and a half ago. The rumor was it's slated to go up next to the power substation. He's worried about the impact it will have on the farmland and the animals.
How's it going to affect if it gets into our ponds and kills our fish in our ponds and things like that? What hardship is it going to do for livestock and for the natural animals that live here?
Public records show the land itself is owned by Donco 3, a construction company just farther down the road. Quella says the land was recently leveled and there are a lot of trees taken out. But does that mean the data center is coming?
But there's a lot of times things like this the county's not conferred with.
Commissioner Dale Fraker says he and the other commissioners didn't hear about the data center until just this morning when a Facebook post popped up.
We've talked and conferred over this, and really it's news to us today too.
Webster County does not have a planning and zoning commission, which means, technically, a project like a data center could be built without the commission's oversight.
As a commission, we have no jurisdiction what goes on.
And if people don't want to have something like a data center built in their community, his recommendation is to reach out to the entity behind the project.
I don't think you should be able to, hurt somebody else's livestock, hurt somebody else's property just to gain a dollar. I think we all need to be good neighbors and be transparent with that.
In Webster County, I'm Adam Woodbray, KY3 News.
Now, there's a town hall event regarding this that is taking place tonight, 6 p.m. at the Jackson Event Center in Marshfield, and this is something that has been in the works for a period of time. I know a number of folks in the Webster County area have reached out and sent me communications about this as it developed and the increased concerns, and was wanting more information because, again, a lot of this is a lack of knowing what is going on. And then when you go to your county folks and they're like, this is the first we've heard of it as well, of course, that doesn't do much to quell any potential fears that people have about it. So, and there's also a change.org titled Stop Any Data Centers from Being Built in Webster County, Missouri. Now, I don't know necessarily what sort of weight that will hold as the county commissioner, I believe it was, there in the KY3 story noted, hey, we don't have any jurisdiction over this. My suggestion is talk to the people putting it in, which I suspect probably, at the very least, you might be able to get some information from them. Now, generally, if you have a company that has spent the time and the resources to get some movement forward in infrastructure development of this type, they're generally not too keen on saying, oh, never mind, because people don't like it. I imagine that they're used to that sort of thing. Are there other remedies? Don't know the answer to that. This is just really new territory for a lot of communities and a lot of states that don't necessarily have any laws or any sort of regulations regarding this stuff yet. So the town hall for those that are in Webster County, or even if you're not in Webster County, I suppose, but you just want to be aware of how much of this stuff does work, in case it does pop up in whatever county or community you're in, give you an opportunity to learn more information. So that is supposed to be at 6 o'clock tonight at the Jackson Event Center in Marshfield. Let's see here. A couple of Pyramid Roofing Company text line. Let's see. AI data centers, not data centers. Ginormous difference. Yeah, and there obviously AI is a component. You have AI data centers, and then you have just regular data centers, and the amount of power usage is pretty significantly different between the two. AI centers using a great deal more. And then just when you throw in a potential AI component in and of itself, that is worrying to some people. And they hear data center, and it doesn't seem as if with this particular data center there is necessarily I guess a guarantee that it's. I don't know that they know yet what sort of data center for sure it is going to be, and that probably is again fueling some of the grave concern that's there. Dream location. Another texted: cheap electricity, free water for cooling with a well, and I'm sure that there are, be it those reasons or others, that they are looking to utilize that portion of land in Webster County for a data center. So, again, Jackson Event Center, 6 o'clock tonight for those that are interested. It's a perfect Cinco de Mayo thing to do, isn't it?
I guess so.
Yeah. It is Cinco de Mayo, isn't it? Have you seen these idiotic people on the left? They're like, all right, just so you know, if you happen to support the orange man that wants to deport families and put kids in cages, maybe you should sit Cinco de Mayo out. I'm like, okay, first of all, can you stereotype any more? What is it with people on the left? And every time something like tacos or margaritas or housekeeping comes up, that it's like that is all they think about minorities. That is all that they think about, particularly when it comes to people who have immigrated to this country from Mexico or El Salvador or Guatemala. It's just like they think of Cinco de Mayo is not even, I know most of you know this, it's not some massive holiday that it gets celebrated in Mexico, and it wasn't Mexico Independence Day. It was regarding a specific battle. Cinco de Mayo is as authentically Mexican as fortune cookies are Chinese. Aren't those an American-made thing?
I don't know.
I think fortune cookies, I hope so for the point of the analogy, but you understand. It's as, how about this one? I know this one people will understand. Cinco de Mayo is as authentic Mexican as Springfield cashew chicken is authentic Chinese.
It'll make you feel better. They were invented in California.
Yeah, so, I know it comes as no shock. People on the left, again, have no concept of what it is that they speak of, particularly when it comes to people who are immigrants or illegal aliens or minorities in this country. Everything to them is a stereotype, and they demonstrate it with their virtue signaling. Coming up, the announcement of Barack Obama's presidential library. Former President Obama putting together a couple of videos with Mark Hamill, who, of course, was Luke Skywalker, and he's an insane leftist. And the videos are, they're just And they range from uncomfortable to cringy, in my opinion, and a lot of people as well, because this is like so many videos that people on the left put together, they produce, hoping that it gets a lot of traction. It does, but it's from people on the right sharing it because it's so bad and it misses the mark to such a degree that it is shared for the purposes of mockery, and this was no different. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. You want the absolute best in your corner? It always helps, especially when it's something big. You're talking about big decisions in life. Buying a new home falls into that category. You're talking about, potentially the home that your own kids are going to grow up in, your grandkids are going to grow up in, that you're going to grow old in. Now, of course, there are starter homes as well, and that can be a very significant thing for you. What not to do, not how to not get house poor. If you don't know what that means, this is just yet another reason you need Emily Johnson House Theory Realty, because no matter what level of home purchasing you are making, there are considerations that are going to be different for you than for someone else. So again, that starter home consideration is much different than the forever home. Or are you expecting kids? Or, oh, your kids are about ready to graduate. These all take in different considerations, and she can really help you guide that, because she deals with people in all these scenarios all the time. And so even though you're in that situation, there may be some things that you aren't really thinking about that will be important to you down the road that she's familiar with, because she deals with folks just like you all the time. So if you want the absolute best when it comes to buying a home, selling homes as well, Emily Johnson House Theory Realty. There were 2 videos posted by the Obama Presidential Library, and yesterday being May 4th, that date has been utilized by fans of Star Wars World. May the 4th be with you, to celebrate things Star Wars. And because the monstrosity that is the presidential library of Barack Obama, the visuals, it looks like something that would house Darth Vader or this, the bad guys in Star Wars. It's just it's just such a dark, doomy facility. Instead of continuing to try to deny that, they have apparently attempted to lean into it. And they're doing that by utilizing the May the 4th be with you as the day to announce the opening date, which will be Juneteenth, of course. I mean, so it's like all the cliches. Just these people on the left. Exhausting. There's a longer video and there's a shorter one. And so this first one I'll play for you before the traffic, and then we'll have the longer one. And it is Mark Hamill attempting, and you see the visuals of him, to use the force in order to contact Barack Obama.
Hear me. Hear me, President Obama. President Obama.
Mark, I told you have to stop contacting me like this.
Oh, I just wanted to ask, when can I come to the Presidential Center?
All right, so that, and then it shows, I think, the date, the June 19th, and I think they're going to charge like $30 a person to get in. I just, everything about this has liberalism written all over it. Now, the one move that they are making on this that isn't necessarily the worst in terms of recommendations is leaning into the Star Wars thing instead of trying to continue to pretend that it's a beautiful building, just accepting that it's ugly, it's awful, it looks like something from the dystopian Star Wars planet, and so just lean into that. And it's not a great marketing tool, but it's better than continuing to tell people it's some beautiful piece of architecture when everyone looks at it and sees how ugly it actually is. A full ad coming up here. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see showers and thunderstorms possible throughout the day, with a temperature falling to around 55 by 3 p.m. Tonight, showers likely with a low around 44. For your Wednesday, scattered showers mainly before 1 p.m. and then mostly cloudy with a high near 57. And for Thursday, sunny with a high near 65.
Mark Hamill, Star Wars fame. Luke Skywalker, and he's just he's one of the unhinged liberals out there. So he's a perfect fit to do promotional videos with Barack Obama announcing the opening of the presidential library, which has been largely considered right in line with what you would see on one of the dark planets of Star Wars. It's just very ugly and very dystopian. Yesterday being May 4th, may the 4th be with you, was a day that they launched a couple of these different videos announcing that on Juneteenth, of course, is apparently the day that they are going to open the presidential library and allow the public in to see it. And this is a second video. The first one is more of a teaser video. This one's a little bit longer with Barack Obama and Mark Hamill.
Happy Star Wars Day from the Obama Presidential Center.
I have a very good feeling about this.
Mark, I am glad you are here. I want to tell you about someone.
Okay. Actor.
A young person born into ordinary circumstances, but restless, unsatisfied. A kid with big dreams, a bit of a rebel.
I like where this is going.
They join a scrappy group of underdogs and set out to change things.
By blowing up a giant space laser?
Mark, this is not about you. As wonderful as you are, this is about them. This isn't a monument to my legacy. It's a gateway to yours. The Obama Presidential Center is much more than a museum. It is an entire campus built to empower you. A place to come together, get inspired, and become a force for change. See what I did there?
Strong the dad jokes are.
Oh. That's perfect.
All right. As usual, Obama, anytime he does any sort of acting, just spot on. Now, a couple things about the messaging there. And number one, it's so clear, this fake attempt at being humble, where he's clearly talking about himself. And, just these normal upbringings and so inspired and this and that. And so as he's talking, obviously the audience is like, okay, you're talking about you. But then, oh no, it's not about him. It's about all of you. Oh. This has become a theme with some of these Democrats, and it's for a very specific reason. Kamala Harris, remember the whole deal with her little digital headquarters changing? I know we just talked about this. What did it get changed to? Remember what
it was from like HQ to headquarters or something like that,
but
remember?
When the announcement was made, it was all about how it was shifting away from being about Kamala to being about the young, inspiring people who are making change. And I think we're increasingly seeing this from Democrats because they can't really run on anything that they have done. It's really a pretty smart ploy. You think about if you're Kamala Harris, you're Gavin Newsom, you're just any of these high-profile Democrats, what are you going to run on? What are you going to make your theme? Homelessness exploded under me. Crime exploded under me. Massive taxpayer fraud exploded under me. Corruption exploded under me. People fleeing the state massively increased under my leadership. I mean, that would be all Gavin Newsom stuff. Kamala Harris. Remember me? I was in charge of the border. You saw how that went. I was also in charge of space and AI. Remember those? Think of all the things she was put in charge of. And so instead, it's just so icky and it's so gross. Oh no, this isn't about me. It's about you. Let's talk about you. Because particularly on the left, they love talking about themselves. They are the center of the universe. The left revolves around them. Be it pronouns, be it whatever it might be. The entire world has to revolve around them. So what better message to come from one of their leaders, one of their candidates, than to it's just such pandering. No, let's not talk about me and all my great successes. Let's instead talk about you and how, you're the future of the party. You're the future of this. Oh, yes, yes, it's so true. It's all such pandering and so empty. It's so vapid. It's just, I think for thinking people, it is the worst of the worst because it's worse than pandering because it's empty pandering. It's empty calories. There's zero substance there whatsoever. Speaking of zero substance, after the traffic, now this is sort of connected to Obama. Fox News has been doing this series on California's troubled solar power plant in the Mojave Desert. And the plant, I think it's spelled Ivanpah, Ivanpah, and I may be mispronouncing that. But the connection to Obama is this was when Obama was president. He poured a lot of your money into this. This was one of the many environmental entities that he touted as the future. And like so many environmental endeavors that the left forces us to pay for, it turns out that it cost a lot more than they say. And it's not good for the environment. In fact, even oftentimes, and this is an example of it, you get these left-wing environmental groups that come out against it because they're so damaging to the environment. And here's a little trick, and I'm going to read to you from some of the story here. When, in many instances, if you get deemed an environmentally friendly corporation, you're exempt from many environmental regulations. Now, isn't that a kicker? And it's like most things government, particularly left-wing government, it's the opposite of what we're told is occurring. So you give a free pass to companies to be violators of the environment simply because they put the word green on their label. And you may ask why? Money. It's all money and marketing, power. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. We have rain in the forecast all day today and tomorrow as well. And if you have storm damage from the hailstorm last week and you're in this kind of weird limbo that so many people are currently facing, reach out to Josh and the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, they're currently on call and they are offering emergency tarping services so damage doesn't go from bad to worse. They do free roof inspections and they're going to be honest about the work that needs to be done out at your home. Plus, they offer discounts for our military and first responders on new roof installs. So if you experience leaks or drips over the next couple of days, call Josh and get him out to your home. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
I was having a conversation a few years ago with somebody very high up in a really, really big company about all this green stuff and how everyone in the business world knows what a scam it is. And it's all about labels. It's all about labels. And that, so the conversation veered towards, well, if you know that's the case, then why don't you just say to hell with this, we're not going to participate? And the answer was because for marketing purposes, a lot of businesses that they do businesses with will only do business with other companies that get those labels. So they can say, look at us, look how wonderful we are, look at us, how environmentally friendly we are, even though it does nothing. And so they have to buy the label of being green, environmentally friendly, in order to not lose business from others who are using it for marketing purposes. It's all money. Scam. So this is part 2 of a series on California's troubled Ivanpah solar power plant in the Mojave Desert. More than a decade after it opened, an Obama-era taxpayer-backed, quote, clean energy solar plant in California still burns fossil fuels and kills thousands of birds each year. The Ivanpah Solar Power Plant, a massive facility in the Mojave Desert near the California-Nevada border, uses hundreds of thousands of mirrors to reflect sunlight into 3 towering structures, generating intense heat to produce electricity. But those same beams have proven to be deadly. Federal researchers and monitoring reports have documented thousands of birds being killed after flying through the plant's concentrated solar rays, a phenomenon known as solar flux. The plant also relies on natural gas to start up each day, producing tens of thousands of metric tons of carbon dioxide annually, an amount comparable to the energy used by thousands of homes, raising questions about how, quote, clean the facility really is. Standing near the site, its footprint is unmistakable. The towers glow intensely as beams of reflected sunlight converge at their top, creating an almost surreal scene against the desert landscape. Once promoted as a symbol of the future of renewable energy, Ivanpah is now drawing scrutiny over whether its environmental costs outweigh its benefits, with critics saying the project raises broader concerns about how clean energy is evaluated. Daniel Turner, founder of the energy advocacy group Power the Future, told Fox News Digital, quote, if oil and gas spills a drop, literally one drop, the entire operation is shut down. And to an extent, that's a good thing. But when you label something green or clean, all regulations get waived. Despite the documented wildlife impacts, the plant continues to operate, with California regulators declining efforts to shut it down and instead arguing it is still needed to support the power grid. Officials under both the Trump and Biden administrations have supported shutting the facility down, citing the high cost of its electricity compared to newer alternatives. The project was built with more than $1.6 billion in federally backed loans and additional taxpayer-funded incentives, leaving hundreds of millions of dollars still outstanding even as environmental concerns continue to mount. In addition, the U.S. Department of Treasury provided a $539 million grant to help build the facility, covering about 30% of construction costs. The facility spans more than 4,000 acres of the Mojave Desert and uses roughly 350,000 mirrors mounted on more than 170,000 heliostats to reflect sunlight towards 3 central towers. That same concentrated light has had unintended consequences. Researchers say that insects are drawn to the bright towers, which in turn attracts birds. Some then fly through the plant's concentrated solar beams known as solar flux, where they can be injured or even killed. Researchers dubbed the phenomenon streamers, with videos released by the U.S. Geological Survey showing birds trailing smoke as their bodies burn. Burned feathers from, a 2016 federal study by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service found evidence of birds suffering feather damage and trauma consistent with exposure to intense heat near the towers. Monitoring reports filed with California regulators reviewed by Fox News Digital continue to document birds and bat deaths at the site, with hundreds of birds found dead each year. Environmental reviews conducted before construction anticipated some levels of wildlife impact, including bird deaths linked to mirror collisions and concentrated solar beams, according to California Energy Commission documents. Quote, bird mortality is still a significant concern at concentrated solar plants like Ivanpah, Lewis Grove, Director of Wind and Energy Policy at the American Bird Conservatory, told Fox News Digital. Public estimates are that thousands of birds are killed every year by this one single facility, adding that the trade-off is generally not worth it for the birds. He noted that newer photovoltaic solar systems have significantly lower impacts on wildlife, underscoring how the industry has shifted away from the technology used by Ivanpah. The Ivanpah plant was a financial boondoggle and environmental disaster, Julia Dow of the Sierra Club said in a previous Fox News Digital report. If you're not familiar with the Sierra Club, it's a left-wing environmental group. She added the project, quote, killed thousands of birds and tortoises and showed that not all renewable technologies are created equal. Beyond bird deaths, the project has reshaped the surrounding desert. The site was once considered a high-quality habitat, according to federal environmental reviews conducted before construction. Development cleared large areas of land, displacing tortoises and other wildlife, and raised concerns about long-term survival. Early monitoring reports showed dozens of protected desert tortoises went unaccounted for during initial operations, including animals held in controlled enclosures. This, according to California Energy Commission documents. Critics have also questioned whether efforts to relocate tortoises away from the site have been effective. The plant's environmental footprint extends beyond wildlife. Ivanpah relies on natural gas to start up operations every single day, a requirement that has raised questions, again, about how clean the facility really is. While the original design assumed limited gas use, actual operations often require several hours of gas burning just to bring the system online. The plant also lacks large-scale energy storage, meaning it cannot generate any electricity at night, a limitation newer solar projects increasingly address. Project documents show the facility was originally approved to use significantly less natural gas than it ultimately required, with operators later seeking approval to increase usage by roughly 60% just to maintain reliable operations. The plant has burned natural gas to support daily startup and operations, producing roughly 25 to 30,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide annually, roughly equivalent to the emission of several thousand U.S. homes. The level of emissions is enough to place the plant under California's cap-and-trade program, which requires major polluters to pay for their emissions, effectively placing the solar facility alongside traditional fossil fuel plants when it comes to emissions. While Ivanpah produces fewer emissions than a conventional natural gas plant, its carbon footprint remains significantly higher than that of modern solar farms, which generate electricity without burning fossil fuels. NRG Energy, which operates the facility, said in a previous statement it remains committed to providing renewable electricity, but declined to provide additional comment regarding the environmental issues. This is one of countless stories that show us it is all marketing, it is all virtue signaling, it is all money, It is all fake. And the irony of a facility that the entire purpose is to help the environment, demonstrating that it does more damage to the environment than so many of the traditional forms, yet gets away with it because it has the green label, which means that the environmental regulations get waived. All of you environmental folks on the left, this is what your political party does in the name of the environment. Springfield City Council approving campaign finance contribution limits, which will help make it more difficult for outsiders, non-elites, to run and get elected. We'll talk about that in the upcoming hour. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company text line. Message coming in. Newsmax had sentences streaming across TV screen that a judge apologized to the shooter at the Correspondents' Dinner. Why, yes, this is correct. It's a left-wing judge. This should come as no surprise. Federal judge on this is from Fox News. A federal judge on Monday decried the prison treatment of President Donald Trump's would-be assassin, apologizing to him for restrictive confinement imposed by jail staff. Now, it sounds as if the confinement simply was saying, you're going to be meeting with your attorneys, and at this time, you can't meet with anyone else. This isn't anything unusual. But this guy was clearly doing a community service. So, must apologize to him. Cole Allen, 31, has been in federal custody since prosecutors say he attempted to gain access to the White House Correspondents' Association dinner ballroom and kill Trump, along with other high-level government officials. Magistrate Judge Zia Faroukwi told an attorney representing the Department of Corrections that he was fascinated and disturbed by Allen's treatment in jail. Allen was placed on suicide watch when he was first imprisoned. Suicide watch protocols mandated that Cole remain on a 24-hour lockdown in a safe cell and have no phone access to call or receive visits from anyone other than his legal team. His lawyers also wanted him to be able to obtain a tablet to assist in his legal defense. He was also allegedly denied a copy of the Bible, despite more than one request. Prosecutor Jocelyn Ballantine reasoned that since Allen told investigators that he did not expect to survive the attack, he could be a danger to himself. But an incredulous judge wasn't convinced by that argument, drawing comparisons between Allen and defendants arrested for rioting at the Capitol on January 6th. Quote, to me, it's extremely disturbing that he was put in 5-point restraints, a person with no criminal history. It's troubling. I never heard of one January 6th defendant who was put in 5-point restraints. So this is what it's all about. This is a left-wing judge, and he views everything through Trump supporters bad, people who hate Trump good. And so in his mind, because none of the people rounded up by the Biden administration, including those that didn't even go into the Capitol, weren't put on suicide watch and the protocol involved in suicide watch, that means that someone who tried to assassinate the President of the United States, many of his cabinet members, and shot a police officer in the process should also be treated in the same manner. That he should not be treated any more restrictive, particularly when it comes to suicide watch. Some of these judges, the fact that they are allowed on the bench sends the message that getting a fair trial or the equal application of the law based off of your political beliefs is a crapshoot. You just have to hope that you get a judge that does not care whether, what your political affiliation is. Because someone like this demonstrates, this guy's still, as a judge, apologizing to a would-be assassin because the judge felt as if the January 6th prisoners were treated with kid gloves, which, of course, anyone who followed the way they were treated knows what a joke that is. The fact that I'm not one who believes a judge should be thrown off the bench for political reasons, but this is someone that clearly does not have the emotional stability to treat defendants equal through the eyes of the law. And instead sees things through the lenses of, well, how is a Trump supporter treated? What difference does that make? Not to mention, this is someone, you can only imagine, if this individual had killed himself, well, of course, you'd have conspiracy theories, as well earned as they may be, but you'd probably have a lawsuit from the family arguing that the government should have known, given that he said he didn't plan to live through this assassination attempt, that he was at least a potential suicidal individual, and to not kick in those protocols was negligent on part of the U.S. government, and there'd be a lawsuit for that if he would follow through and actually commit suicide. So, yeah, I mean, that crawl across the Newsmax screen is absolutely 100% accurate, sadly. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see showers and thunderstorms possible throughout the day, with a temperature falling to around 55 by 3 p.m. Tonight, showers likely with a low around 44. For your Wednesday, scattered showers mainly before 1 p.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 57. And for Thursday, sunny with a high near 65.
Did you ever eat at Taylor's?
I have, yeah.
I did, I know, at least once. She said, Landis mentioned there in the story, if you don't know where it is, I always think of it as across from the Shrine Mosque. And, just the great burgers, old-fashioned sort of restaurant. And I don't think they ever took anything other than cash, did they?
Yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, I want to say, I know when I ate there, and it wasn't decades ago, it was cash only, and that may have been all the way up until the eventual closure. But she had also, Mike Landis noted that the name isn't for sale, but the building is. And part of the reason was because she referenced what she saw happen to Red's Hamburg, and an attempt to reopen it, and then it just sort of falters. And she didn't want to see that. She didn't want to see somebody, as well-intended as they may be, come along, buy it as Taylor's, and then maybe just see things go in a direction that would not be a legacy that she would want. Almost like a sitcom going out on top, Sometimes they go on too long, or you get different writers. You're like, oh, it should have ended after season 7. And apparently that's what she's hoping is to leave behind that. But I get that. But it was a good place to get a burger. I kept hoping that it would reopen. But I still get my burger places. I like E's on 60. You've been there with me before, haven't you? Yeah. That's a great go-to burger place. I know there's tons of them out there, but that one's close to home for me physically. I just really... my mother-in-law loves cheeseburgers. I've never seen a woman love cheeseburgers like my mother-in-law, and I think somehow I've absorbed that because I used to be indifferent to them, but maybe it's just an age thing. Coming up, the city of Springfield has decided to make it more difficult for challengers to unseat incumbents, masquerading it as cleaning up politics by dictating how much citizens can actually donate to different candidates. That next. Hardscapes and Outdoor, all of your landscaping needs, your hardscaping needs, be it a your home, like what I've got, or maybe you are building new. I recommend that from the moment you purchase that land, you get with Daniel Hunter at Hunter Hardscapes and have that all done at the same time, integrated into the building of your home, and be it the hardscaping, the landscaping, the drainage, the lighting, I mean, anything and everything that they do. And you can see some of the incredible and this is high quality stuff. So if you're looking to get it done in a few weeks, Hunter Hardscapes, these aren't the folks for you. These are folks in very high demand because of the quality of work and the quality of product they use. And so, excuse me, we're talking, planning out probably several months. But if you're going to do something right, sometimes it takes a little extra time, and it's worth spending the extra time getting done, and that's what it is that you get with Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. You can find them under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. Springfield City Council approves campaign finance contribution limits. Individuals running for Springfield mayor and city council seats are now limited to a total of $2,825 in both monetary and in-kind contributions. Now, first off, that can be misleading. They are not limited to receiving any amount in contributions. Now, citizens are limited in how much they can give. So the folks within the city of Springfield, the city leaders, have picked the number 2,825. Now, there's no cap on what city council members can raise or candidates can raise. They can raise $8 million if they want to. As usual, there's a sleight of hand here. There is the presentation that they are putting limits on themselves, when in reality, the limit is being put on you and me. The idea behind this is that the influential elites that are able to pick up the phone, call a city council person, call the mayor, that are able to go out and have dinner with or cocktails with, that suddenly those people have no influence whatsoever above and beyond the average person. The idea here is that our council members are bought off. This is what they're telling us, that they are bought and paid for by these people that want to write them big checks, and they can't help themselves but to give those people attention above and beyond what the average citizen gets. And so in order to protect us from them being unethical in that manner, they have to put restrictions on how much we can donate to them to make sure that nobody can donate too much to them that then buys their attention above and beyond what the average citizen gets. Did you follow that logic? It's left-wing logic, but that's how they think. Now, how is it, you may ask, did they determine that the number of $2,825 is what prevents them from being unethical? There's no explanation for that. It's just a number they picked. Just sounded good to them, I guess. They don't have to give you a reason. They're the ones in charge. It doesn't have to make sense. They also, still, best I can tell, have not provided any example of a city or a state or a municipality that had a problem with a select few having undue influence over elected officials, implementing regulations such as this, and then suddenly it fixed the problem. You know how absurd this and insulting this is? And frankly, the entire concept of, I get the idea behind it. This is a very, you know what, that campaign finance laws are similar to corporate taxes. In convincing you that actually, like the corporate tax, we're going to really stick it to those corporations. And what they want you to believe is that it's sticking it to the corporations, that it's going to somehow really make them behave and it's going to hold them accountable when, in fact, you're the one who pays those taxes. campaign finance limits they put it out there, portraying it as taking care of us, making sure that we can trust that our elected officials are not bought and paid for by people who can write a better check. When in fact it does no such. Show me an example of anywhere this has occurred. When the campaign finance laws, McCain-Feingold, John McCain, Republican, Russ Feingold, Democrat, joining forces, coming together in order to limit how much Americans can give to people like them, because we had to be protected from them. And did I miss the day that we pivoted and suddenly we could trust elected officials to be above board? Can we find any example of this actually working? Of course not. This is one of these issues to me that is so frustrating because it's all such total, complete BS. It is such a scam job, all premised on them, protecting us from them, when all it does is protect them. This is how misled some people are. And, sometimes you don't know which of these people are part of the problem in spreading the disinformation deliberately and which are the victims and believing the disinformation and then regurgitating it. Resident Chase Blackburn said he supports the bill because it moves the city towards a fairer system. Limits on campaign contributions help make sure regular people have a real chance to run and a real chance to be heard. Now, how? How does it do that? You know what actually happens? It does the opposite. Viability, and this is the reality of it. A lot of times people, they may like some candidate, but they're like, well, all right, how much money have you raised? Well, I haven't really raised that much. People don't want to throw money at something that they feel doesn't have a chance. When you are running against an incumbent, you have to have a lot of money. Now, in a world in which the incumbents don't put limits on how much you can raise, if you find someone who believes in you, and they have the ability to write you a $10,000 check, that allows you to not have to rely so much on fundraising and to actually spend time out there talking to constituents and actually have a chance at beating an incumbent. Or you can do what the current city has done and say, you know what, we're not going to let you do that. No big check out of the gate for you. No access to a revenue source that lets you go out and start campaigning, that lets you immediately buy ad time, that lets you immediately set up town hall meetings, that lets you immediately buy flyers. You know what? We don't think we're going to let you do that. We're going to put a cap on how much you can get from individual donors. So instead, in order to raise $50,000, or $100,000, or whatever the amount might be, in order to have any sort of reasonable chance to unseat an incumbent, you can't just rely on one big donor. You're going to have to spend 99% of your time begging for money. Now, does that really sound like a system that's more fair for the outsider? Does that sound like a system that somehow improves the odds that a person who's not a career politician is going to be able to participate in the system? This makes it more difficult. You may not like it. People may, just want to live in a fantasy world and wish that it made it more fair. It does not. Why do you think incumbent politicians always support this stuff? Do you think that they support it because they think that it really increases the likelihood that people are going to be able to take them on and unseat them? Really? Because these are the same people who tell us we have to have these things put in place to protect us from them, perhaps not being so ethical when it comes to donations. You see that contradiction? And I know some of you have heard me talk about this as this has been brought up and proposed before. It shouldn't be amazing to me, but as the city apparently is embarking on this, new approach and making sure that the people of Springfield think we really listen to them and care about at the same time to create this incumbency protection racket. I mean, just maybe I can reduce it down to this. Let's say that you decide you want to run. And you're not part of the elites. You're not part of all these groups and these political action committees that raise all of these different. You're not part of that world. You're just a citizen. And you're taking on an incumbent that has the backing of some unions and the backing of this organization and that organization and the backing of the chamber and has all of these the big name influential people behind them that are going to put up yard signs. And by the way, they already have tons of yard signs because they've paid for them in the past, so they don't really have to raise money to get more of those. And there's two ways to go about this. You can either find someone that says, you know what, I believe in you. I'm going to just write you a check for $50,000. And then there's the world Springfield is now in which, nope, sorry, you have to go out and beg for pennies. You have to spend, which of those two scenarios do you believe realistically makes it more likely that a challenger has an opportunity to actually be successful in competing? I think we know the answer to that. How shocking that all of the people who want to continue to hold elected office in Springfield see it differently. Or do they? Now, the due process component to this, I cannot even begin to fathom would stand up if it is challenged, though I'm not a legal expert. But I do kind of know about the whole innocent until proven guilty, and if you can't afford an attorney, then one will be appointed for you. And this still appears to just create this circumvent around a judicial system in which none of those due process portions come into play, and a committee appointed by city council members can throw you in jail if they decide you have violated this ordinance.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today, showers and thunderstorms are possible throughout the day, with a temperature falling to around 55 by 3 p.m. Tonight, showers likely with a low around 44. For your Wednesday, scattered showers mainly before 1 p.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 57. And taking a look at Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 65.
All right, we're talking about the city of Springfield doing what I suspected they would do and make it much, much more difficult for incumbents to be unseated. And the way that you do that is you make it much, much more difficult for them to raise money. And the way you do that is you limit the amount of money that they can get per person. It's a pretty simple concept. Like if you're wanting to open a business and you need to take out a $100,000 loan and you are told you can only borrow $5,000 per financial entity, clearly that is going to be much more burdensome than the ability to go take out a loan from one entity. This just makes it more difficult, and it forces newcomers to spend all of their time trying to fundraise. And by newcomers, I mean challengers. This is done for one reason and one reason only: to help incumbents stay in power. They have built-in infrastructure. They have built-in networking. These are individuals that are known by the movers and shakers. They oftentimes already, because of prior campaigns, have yard signs, so they don't have to raise money to buy that stuff like you do. This is a rig job. It's dishonest. It's unethical. Ironically, all of this is done in the name of ethics. As I've noted before, if they really truly wanted to make sure that they weren't affected by individuals or people or groups that had undue influence, they would ban endorsements. I guarantee you an endorsement from certain unions means a heck of a lot more than a $2,800 and whatever dollar check. And they know this. Guess who is more likely to get endorsements from different unions? We all know the answer to that. It's incumbents. So they have that built in. I notice they haven't put any sort of restrictions on their ability to tout endorsements, have they? Now, I want to read to you what they have voted in, and this is sponsored by Mayor Schrag and Councilmember Hosmer and Hardinger. This was the filed April 29, 2026, Substitute Council Bill 2026-093. Under violations, it notes, for any contributor to contribute to any candidate, candidate committee, or person acting on behalf of a candidate or candidate committee, any amount exceeding the limitation amounts. So, by the way, this isn't just about people running. This is you as a contributor. For any candidate, candidates committee, candidate committee treasurer, person acting on behalf of a candidate or candidate committee to accept any contribution which exceeds the limitation amounts, an unauthorized contribution is accepted if it is not returned to the contributor within 30 days of receipt of the unauthorized contribution. For any candidate or candidate committee treasurer to fail to return within 30 days of receipt of the unauthorized contribution, a contribution which exceeds the limitation amounts, including interest or other premium earned by the contribution exceeding the authorized limitation in each and every day or portion thereof during which any violation of this provision is committed or continues shall be a separate offense. For any person to make a contribution in the name of another person, or to permit his or her name to be used to effect such a contribution, or to accept a contribution made by one person in the name of another person. Now, this is where if this is something that can be allowed in America, this is about as anti-American as you can get. Penalty. Any person who violates this section shall be punishable by a fine not to exceed $1,000 and or not more than 6 months in jail. Now, this isn't as it reads, as I read it. Again, not an attorney. This doesn't talk about being forwarded to the prosecuting attorney's office. This doesn't talk about, just, of course, if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be afforded for you, to you, as is your right as an American if you are accused of an offense that could land you in prison or jail. This is an advisory board of people made up by the city council. How it is that you can have a city pick a group of people and give them the power to put citizens in jail without a due process? It is shocking to me that this sort of thing could actually occur. And as taxpayers, the people of Springfield pay, I'm sure, a pretty penny for the city to have attorneys advising them what is and is not legal and constitutional. So I must be in the wrong on this. This is Soviet-style justice here, where you just create these committees, you get pulled before a committee, and then the committee decides whether you go to jail, whether you pay a fine. I don't know if this will be challenged. I suspect that there's a chance if it was challenged legally, they'd say, well, you don't have standing, which means that they would actually have to implement this and try to throw a citizen in jail for violating it. But again, the problem is, what citizen can take on a city with unlimited taxpayer dollars? Again, the system rigged against the little guy. Everything about this is rigging the system. And for a city that just got not one but two spankings from the citizens over this convention center thing, this is not a demonstration of, oh, golly gee, we better change our ways. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. You know, the real big marketing of campaign finance laws came out of a massive campaign finance scandal, and there was what was called the Keating Five. And one of the career politicians that got caught up in all of it was John McCain. And John McCain's approach to dealing with this campaign finance scandal was to push laws, create new laws to protect the citizens from corrupt people like him. And so he joined forces with extreme left-wing Russ Feingold. He was a Democrat from Wisconsin, long recognized as the most liberal U.S. senator at the time, or at least one of them, and came up with McCain-Feingold. So you had two individuals with two different motivations for really getting the ball rolling. To the capacity that it is today, this whole concept that somehow politicians will be ethical if you take our ability away to donate certain amounts of money to them. For Russ Feingold, it's because he was a liberal and just believed that government should have that ultimate authority over you, should get to that people like him in power should get to dictate what it is that you do with your own money when it comes to campaigns. For John McCain, it was a marketing rehabilitation campaign. He was caught up in a severe scandal that had the appearance of being bought off because of donations. And so what better thing to do than go out and champion legislation that's going to clean up politics by putting limits on how much money people like him can get from each individual. And of course it worked. I don't know if you've noticed, but clearly politics is so much more ethical today than it was before McCain-Feingold went into effect. Aside from because people will point to clear instances of corruption. They'll say, well, look, see, it involved money. That means we have to get money out of it. No, money is like a gun. Its usage is dependent on the person. Money doesn't make people corrupt. People make people corrupt. Just like guns don't kill people, people kill people. If guns killed people, then every person that had a gun would just go around murdering people. If money made people unethical and immoral, then everyone who had money would be unethical and immoral, and it's just not that way. Now, is it a tool that oftentimes gives people access to things that might tempt them to be more immoral than they otherwise would not have? Well, sure. Life's full of those things. And I'm not pretending a system in which people are not restricted in the amount of money they can donate is one that leads to more ethical elected officials. What I'm acknowledging is that limiting the amount of money they get does not take unethical elected officials and suddenly make them ethical. That's not how that works. You think they don't take money under the table? You think that they don't go? I mean, come on. Criminals are criminals. And you can put all of this, again, I equate it to gun legislation. Every new gun law that gets passed, you know who it restricts? The people that you don't need to worry about. The people who aren't, going to be out there using firearms in a way that is detrimental to society, because if they were, they would ignore the law. And it's the same thing with corrupt politicians or corrupt people and money. You think that, by the standard that money is what dictates whether a person is corrupt, means that only like, you'd have a sliding scale, and multimillionaires are all corrupt, but you drive by a trailer park and they're all pure as the driven snow because they don't have as much money. Doesn't work that way, does it? You got a mix of ethical and unethical. You got a mix of moral and immoral. You got a mix of all across the financial spectrum. And this idea that people claim, because we love easy answers. I get it. It would be fantastic if some of the big problems we had in society, you could just create a law and magically, the problem goes away. That'd be easy, wouldn't it? Sure would. That's not the way it works, though. And the corrupt people play off of people's desire to believe you can just pass a law that will suddenly make immoral people moral, or immoral acting people act moral. And nope. Doesn't work that way. Sorry. I get passionate about, don't worry, I'm going to throw it to you.
Okay.
I get passionate about that campaign finance stuff. But those of you who disagree with me, I'm not mad at you. It's the people who who know what they're doing, who know exactly what they're doing, and that's who I just get so frustrated with. And the fact that there's nowhere ever that this magical plan has ever worked, yet they keep selling it and people buy it. Like I said, I understand why they buy it. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air, just want to give you a reminder once again, if you're cleaning up after storm damage, after the hailstorm from last week, this is the reminder to also check on your outdoor AC unit, and also make sure, it doesn't have any serious dents that could cause problems down the road. And if you're having your roof inspected or you plan on going up there yourself, make sure to check the flue for your furnace and your water heater as well. That's one thing that the Foreman team, they've received a lot of calls for over this last week. If it is time to have the Foreman team out to your home for just a repair, or you want an extra set of eyes on things, reach out to Russell today. You can schedule an appointment at foremanmechanical.com, or you can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Kamala Harris has endorsed Karen Bass for re-election in Los Angeles. Can it be any more perfect?
Of course she would.
Listen, I get it. I know some of you folks that maybe lean Democrat, or you're Democrat, and you're like, well, Republicans, this and that. But it's like loser after loser after. How can anyone in their right mind support Karen Bass? Forget the Kamala Harris component to this. The revelations that have come forth regarding Karen Bass and how she knew I think it was last week or the week before, audio recordings of, I think it was someone within fire was telling her that there are bad things. Like, she knew before she left on that little trip to wherever it was she was going, that there was a very good chance some horrible things were going to happen. She went anyway. Not to mention just, I mean, everything about the way that was handled. What do you people choose a leader based off of? I mean, what? I can't even fathom any person voting for Karen Bass out in Los Angeles. That is insane. And then for Kamala Harris, it's another excellent judgment call on Kamala Harris's part.
I don't even think she lives out there anymore, does she?
Yeah, I think they moved. They bought this. And
so how perfect, right?
Yeah. I mean, why would you endorse Karen other than you're just an idiot? Maybe she thinks she'll win and she wants to. I don't know. I can't figure it out. Sometimes I can figure these people out. If you're Karen Bass, would you want Kamala's endorsement? I guess. So as you can imagine, Spencer Pratt, he's getting more and more attention, which is a good thing whether he wins or not. You know, I always find it interesting when people who are not front and center interested in politics start talking about certain things in politics, because it means that it's outside the normal political wonky environment, and it's seeping out into the general public. And I mentioned, my sister, my wife, is like, what do you think about this Spencer? So you have people that aren't completely ignorant as to what goes on in the world, but they're not like in it. They're not following the Los Angeles mayor's race to see what happens out there. That is getting to them. And it's a jungle primary, and there's this plot out there. It's not necessarily real coordinated, but there's some political influencer that I'm not really familiar with. Samantha Edis is her name, and she's trying to get a lot of people to vote for Karen Bass. She's, I guess, a conservative, and her argument is, hey, listen, Pratt he's gonna be in the top two because Republicans will vote for him, but we want Karen Bass to also be in the top two so that those two run off against one another, because that is the greatest opportunity for a Republican to win the mayor's race in Los Angeles. Now, I think there's a lot of calculation in there that doesn't necessarily potentially add up, but that aside, there's a lot of attention being paid to this, and the benefit of it, even if Spencer Pratt does not win, which odds are against him, is I think that it really focuses in on the fact that of the two political parties, Democrats continue to vote for complete losers, no matter, even when they destroy an entire city, and then refuse to help them rebuild their lives while they live in their mansions. The other Democrat councilwoman who's a Democrat socialist, she's Hollywood elite. Her husband's in, one of these Hollywood guys. She lives in a multi-million-dollar mansion. They are isolated from the crime. They're isolated from all of this stuff. And just the fact that this gives Americans a real differing view between Republicans and Democrats. And going into the midterms, it's not a bad thing. Springfield's Talk 1041, and a good day to you. My name is Nick Reed, hour 3 on a Tuesday. Yes, indeed. Ozarks elder law, as you get older, you start thinking about, dying, among other things, and what's going to happen with your stuff, and is it going to be a hassle for your family? But you ought to think about all that much sooner, because I don't know if you've noticed, but people die at all ages. I know it's not necessarily the most fun thing to talk about. Now, the upside for you is once you're dead, then you don't have anything to worry about. It's your family that has to worry about all the stuff. If you don't like your family, what do you care, right? But if you don't want in their time of mourning to have them spending just a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of heartache fighting because of probate or the government or whatever is causing all sorts of strife, then you need to make sure all that stuff is legally laid out ahead of time. And you may not know what needs to be done. You may have an idea, but you want to get with the experts. Ozarks Elder Law, 10 area locations, consultations free. They take care of that for you. So what'll happen is when you reach out to them, and they'll, talk with you and give you, as Lori Rook refers to it, as some homework. So that first meeting that y'all have, they're going to, have you bring some stuff to the table and based off of that, be able to do some meaningful evaluation, say, okay, well, now we know you need to do a trust, or maybe you don't need to do a trust. You need to do a will. It just depends. You got these assets over here. You ought to move them over here and go through all of that with you and then let you know, okay, so we can get all that legally done. Here's what it'll cost. So then you know ahead of time, okay? 10 area locations, ozarkselderlaw.com, also under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. Here's the story I referenced, and it's in the New York Post. A political influencer, this is regarding the Los Angeles race for governor, and a political influencer is telling supporters of L.A. mayoral candidate Spencer Pratt the best way to help his victory is to vote for Mayor Karen Bass next month. Critics are torching her argument as insane. Samantha Edis, a self-described best-selling author and commentator, has been posting multiple videos in recent days urging conservatives to vote for Bass. Edis claims her primary motivation is to ensure that Nitha Rahman, a Democrat socialist running for mayor, does not win. The influencer says she was very involved with New York's mayoral race that ended up with Mamdani as mayor. That would be the Democrat socialist L.A. mayor candidate. Quote, we are now in danger of a similar outcome in Los Angeles, she said. She said Los Angeles voters against socialism need to strategize differently for the primary next month versus the general election in November. California has a jungle primary with the top two candidates with the most votes, regardless of political party face-off in November. Spencer Pratt is a shoo-in, she claims, because all the Republicans will vote for him. The other spot will go to either Rahman or Bass, both Democrats. If Rahman gets the second spot, she will win, she claims. But if Bass ends up facing off against Rahman, Bass can beat her. Voters need to do all they can to avoid Rahman as mayor, Edis said, and later pivot to pushing for Pratt in the general election. Quote, hold your nose and vote for Karen Bass in the primary, she said. Pratt's campaign account on X was quick to urge voters not to back the idea, posting, none of these schemes, please. We need every vote we can get. Just vote for the candidate and let best Pratt win. His supporters were also quick to push back against Edis, calling her rhetoric dangerous and misleading. Quote, telling people to vote for Bass so Spencer can win is a strategy so horrifying only a Democrat would think of it, said California GOP delegate Elizabeth Barcahona. Barcahona noted that Bass is the mayor defending her seat as an incumbent, meaning she has the financial backing and endorsements. She will likely already make the top two, she added. All Edis's rhetoric does is increase the chance Bass will get more than 50% of the vote, which means Bass wins the mayorship outright. Edis had claimed the field was too crowded to worry about that happening. Now, this is a race, and given the jungle primary component to it, what this influencer is talking about is not an absolute impossibility. But at the same time, there isn't I don't think there's anything that indicates the numbers would play out in a way that would work. I mean, it would be a crapshoot. If you're encouraging people who would normally vote for, because the whole idea here is to get Spencer Pratt up against Karen Bass. And the reason for that is to prevent the Democratic Socialist from becoming mayor, Rahman, and from getting in the top two. So if you are then appealing to people to vote for Bass, so she's going to, obviously you're not going to get Rahman voters to do that because the Rahman voters don't want Bass in the top two. They want Rahman, which means that you're talking about Spencer Pratt voters. Well, so every one additional vote for Bass is one less for Pratt, and you could end up, if you're successful in getting enough of those Pratt voters believing that this is a wise strategy, to where he doesn't get enough to make the top two. I mean, you can't really say, okay, well, we only need this many people to do it. I mean, it doesn't work that way. I don't know. It sounds like a harebrained idea from someone who thinks that potentially they're more clever than they actually are. What I would focus on is just trying to get him 50+% of the vote. And then there is no, because that's the way that their system works out in California, is if there is any one candidate that gets 50+1% of the vote, then they automatically win the election, and there is no runoff. Now, the likelihood, of course, of that occurring is very minimal. Because of the fact that it's Los Angeles and you have a lot more Democrats than you have Republicans that are going to be voting. He'll probably, or there's a good chance he'll get the plurality and he'll end up in the top two, and then, things will go from there. But even if he had a really, really strong showing and got close to 50%, that certainly would be a huge morale boost to, I would think, the people of Los Angeles, because again, how anyone in their right mind can see 5,000 homes burned to the ground, 12 people killed, and still nary a home rebuilt after promising everything, all the red tape was going to get cut and everything, and that anyone can be like, yes, that's what we need more of. But Democrats are a different breed. And so they vote for continued destruction. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see showers and thunderstorms throughout the day, with the temperature falling to around 55 by 3 p.m. Tonight, showers likely with a low around 44. For your Wednesday, scattered showers mainly before 1 p.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 57. And for Thursday, sunny with a high near 65.
Now, Los Angeles, apparently, the idea of Spencer Pratt potentially becoming mayor is just getting a little too close to comfort for them. The idea that a Republican would even begin to get any traction. And so they are now entertaining the notion to open the door for Los Angeles elections to foreigners. Just anyone in the world. Democrats on the Los Angeles City Council hoping to potentially open the door to foreigners, including illegal aliens, voting in city elections. The proposal put forward by Councilman Hugo Soto Martinez, Democrat, would ask voters on the November election ballot whether the Los Angeles City Charter should be amended so that the council could discuss the plan to allow foreign nationals to vote in city elections. Quote, it just says, should we amend the city charter to allow the city council to explore this in the future? The motion still has to pass the council's rule committee and then go before the full city council. Only after it's been approved by the council would it make it onto the November ballot. So, and these are the people that ran around screaming falsely that the Russians were stealing our elections, the Russians were influencing our elections, that this was the greatest threat to democracy ever. We can't trust our elections because foreigners might be influencing it. Yet they push to allow them to actually vote in our elections. Explain that one. Did you know that there is a suspect in the Palisades fire? Did you know this?
I did know that, actually.
Yeah. He apparently, so his name's Jonathan Rinderknecht. He's 30 years old. And was obsessed with the accused healthcare CEO killer and had routinely searched free Luigi Mangione and, quote, let's take down all the billionaires. Fixated on a, quote, resentment of the rich. What? A Democrat activist? In the weeks and hours before allegedly sparking the blaze that triggered the catastrophic Palisades fire, Rinderknecht, who worked as an Uber driver, ranted to customers about Mangione's arrest. Quote, many of defendants' Uber passengers on December 31st of 24 and January 1st of 2025 described defendant as angry and tense, driving erratically and ranting about being pissed off at the world and Luigi Mangione, capitalism and vigilantism, ironically. When asked why he ultimately set the blaze, he allegedly responded that it would be out of resentment of the rich, enjoying their money as we basically are being enslaved by them. Now, where would that sort of rhetoric have come from? See, there's this mistaken belief that the Democrat rhetoric only results in attempts to assassinate Donald Trump. And I think a lot of establishment Republicans believe that once Donald Trump is no longer president, that Democrats will suddenly become non-killers. This will no longer be a problem. This increasingly frequent attempts by left-wingers to murder people, either school children in a Christian school or people that they perceive as anti-trans or healthcare workers, CEOs, or rich people, or the whole litany of enemies that the Democrat Party has created. That is a mistaken belief. They have not, and I don't even know that if they fully realize this. See, in their attempt to demonize Donald Trump as Hitler, for example, if you buy into that, then you buy into all people who aren't on the left as being Nazis. When you run around, for example, Katie Porter, who's running for governor of California, former Democrat congresswoman. And she's got a new campaign out. It's demonizing the billionaires and the rich, tying them to Donald Trump. Well, when you tie rich people to Hitler, you aren't just demonizing Donald Trump. You are not just putting a target on the back of Donald Trump. You are putting it on every single person that you associate with Donald Trump. So it should come as no shock that you've got some Democrat activists here that sympathized with the murder of a healthcare CEO and that wanted to punish rich people, with the mistaken belief that because they had something, that means that he has less than. 12 people died in that fire. 12 people. Aside from the thousands and thousands of homes that were burned to the ground. I don't think that gets enough attention. For the listing of individuals that have either lost their lives or been shot or been nearly shot by Democrat activists, the 12 victims of the Palisades fire that were driven by a hatred for rich people. That is a target that was deliberately put on the backs of people who are perceived as being wealthy by the Democrat Party. This us versus them. This constant drumbeat of they're not, quote, paying their fair share. The constant lie about how the rich people pay less in taxes than a teacher and a firefighter. The constant false disinformation campaigns that somehow because you have less, that means they have more. And when you see people who have more, that's why you have less. Donald Trump's not the only one who gets targeted. And there are 12 people that died in the Palisades fire because of that same targeting by the Democrat Party. And I don't think that should go unnoticed. I'd have referenced a lot of LA and California stories this hour, but there are quite a few that just give you a sense of what it's like living under Democrat rule. And this is yet another story. Outrage as Americans learn what California asked people moving away for tax reasons. Writing, Americans moving out of California say state bureaucrats are demanding they explain why they left or risk being taxed as residents, even though they no longer live there. Some have received letters demanding various proof of their departure. fueling fresh criticism of the state's tax policies, according to Online Post. Quote, people who have left California are receiving letters telling them that they still have to pay California state taxes. Quote, my gosh, if this doesn't show how broke California is, I don't know what will. It's not just a matter of being broke, it's a mindset. It's a toxic relationship. How dare you leave me? I'll show you. You want to leave me? You thinking about leaving me? Let me show you what happens to people who leave. We will be relentless. We will continue to figure out a way to extract money from you. If you don't prove to our satisfaction that you don't still owe us money, then we'll send you to collections. You like that high credit score? These people are psycho. It is a toxic relationship. And they are attempting through threats and intimidation to set up a virtual Berlin Wall. So people can't leave California, or at least fear leaving, thinking it's just another hassle we don't need if we're going to leave this state because they keep taking money from us and they're going to continue to hound us and take money from us. What's the point? Just like oftentimes people in a broken, toxic relationship give up and say, I might as well just stay. I mean, and the guy who is the governor of this state is the guy a lot of people want to be president of the country. When you have to use threats and intimidation to try to stop people from leaving you, you're not a good partner. Watch any 48 hours. You'll learn that. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today, showers and thunderstorms are possible throughout the day, with a temperature falling to around 55 by 3 p.m. Tonight, showers likely with a low around 44. For your Wednesday, scattered showers mainly before 1 p.m., otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 57. And for Thursday, sunny with a high near 65. And Springfield Livestock Marketing Center coming up this Wednesday. They will host their weekly feeder sale starting at 9 a.m. If you can't make it out there, but you still want to attend virtually, they offer live streaming options and online bidding. And if you are on the seller side of things, Springfield Livestock, they accept cattle 7 days a week, and they have field reps across the listening area like Ty in Mount Vernon, Wayne in Marshfield, and Zane in Bolivar, just to name a few. If you have any questions or you need help hauling, they have definitely got you covered. To check out other upcoming sales or to find more information on those field reps I just mentioned, visit their Facebook page or their website, springfieldlivestock.com. And as always, you can find all of the contact information for Springfield Livestock Marketing Center under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Now, I know most of you, including me, probably don't follow. I know I don't really the latest with the Met Gala. And it still gets a lot of coverage because it's the who's who of the who's who. And this is largely, it's a fundraiser for fashion stuff. There's this wing at the Metropolitan Museum of Art it's the Costume Institute. And it's about costumes and design and so forth. And so this is the annual fundraiser to help support it. And you've seen, they do the red carpet and who's wearing what. And I believe it was the Met Gala that AOC wore, ironically, the Tax the Rich dress. There are a number of celebrities that are boycotting it this year, though some aren't necessarily saying why. They're maybe it's a soft boycott. They're not attending, while at the same time they are reposting comments regarding and referencing Jeff Bezos' sponsorship of the event. And this largely surrounds the fact that Jeff Bezos, he's been to the White House, and he's clearly not this longtime massive Trump supporter, but like a lot of other tech people, once Trump got reelected to the presidency, they kind of woke up and realized that the landscape wasn't quite what they thought it was, and they began to just recalibrate themselves to be not quite so hostile towards MAGA world. Not necessarily huge fans or supporters, but the hostilities that were so clear and so overt, and the censorship that many of these different tech people in particular had participated in order to suppress conversations online that non-Democrats were having. They pulled back on that a little bit. In addition to that, Bezos evidently, I don't know, he's got a lot of companies, but one of them has to do with software that ICE uses as part of their operations. And so because he has a connection to ICE enforcing our border laws, this is a reason that a lot of these celebrities are very, very upset. Now, the reason he's a co-sponsor is because he wrote a check for like $10 million. And so I don't know if that is what officially made him a sponsor of the event, but it was known that he wrote a big check, and then he also was put on a board or something. And so suddenly some of these rich celebrities on the left are feigning outrage that somebody could buy their way into influence in Hollywood. They're just shocked and appalled that their Met Gala event, after years and years and years of nothing but the most pure and ethical motivation, that somebody might, with money, taint things and win a little bit of influence, which of course it's Hollywood, so being upset by something like that's a total joke. There's a couple of different articles regarding this, and one of them is from the Daily Mail. And the headline is, the Met Gala's chief curator reveals how fashion's biggest night deals with gate crashers and starstruck guests, and why he'll be fielding calls from Anna Whitmauer the morning after. Now, this is a separate story from the story about a lot of these rich celebrities being mad because Jeff Bezos has a connection to ICE and border enforcement and being connected to this year's particular event. But they're a perfect pairing with one another. Because like every celebrity event, border security is more strict than virtually anywhere else you can find outside of perhaps the presidency, and after the White House Correspondents' Dinner, some could argue even greater security, border security. It's so perfect that on one hand, you have these celebrities griping about Jeff Bezos and a connection to border enforcement, while you've got an entire article separately that is, and it's sort of fun fact water cooler stuff about how to what lengths people will go to sneak in past security in order to get a glimpse of what goes on inside the Met Gala. Because once you're inside certain areas, you know, there's no cameras that are allowed. And the story has a couple of different anecdotes, like one guy pretending to be a chef in order to sneak in. But the amount of security that these celebrities demand at these events, while then in turn, behind their gated communities, criticizing average Americans who would like the same level of security that they get to experience, and they look down on us. They call us racist. They call us all sorts of horrible and deplorable names. The hypocrisy of these people, and I've noted this on a number of occasions. Usually this pops up if you have some sort of celebrity that gets, you know, up at one of their concerts and they start railing on border enforcement and railing on ICE. And having been to a concert like many of you, particularly the larger concerts of those that are a bit more famous, the levels of security you have to go through to get into one of those things. You want to try to get in without a ticket, one of those? Do you think that those celebrities would allow some of the VIP seats to be taken by people who didn't pay for a ticket? Of course not. That's why they hire security teams. The last concert I went to, not only did you have to show your ticket to get in through the door, but then you had to show your ticket to get into the arena part, and then I had to show the ticket to get to the lower level, and then I had to show my ticket in order to get to the pit. 4 different times I had to prove that I legitimately had the right to be there. And the appalling nature of these celebrities that make money largely off the dependency of such strict security, be it a concert or the Met Gala, then virtue signal and gripe about border security, expecting average citizens to just open up the floodgates and let anyone and everyone in that wants to, while they live a completely separate life. And I think that so many of these people are so completely unaware. The self-awareness is non-existent. It never even crosses their mind. I suspect some of these same Met Gala people or some of these same other celebrities that rip on our country, rip on Donald Trump, rip on you for demanding border security would have no trouble whatsoever watching their security guards tackle someone to the ground that tried to approach them past their velvet ropes. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Regarding California and the increased number of citizens who have fled California that get follow-up threatening letters from the state demanding to know why they left and demanding proof that they actually left in order to escape being taxed even after they've moved, which again is a sign of a very healthy relationship. Pyramid Roofing Company text line: when I fled California back in '09, the DMV sent me threatening letters saying they would fine, jail, or revoke my license and truck registration for not paying truck registration fees, even though I registered my truck the second week here in Missouri. Happened for 3 years. By the way, it was $1,000 a year as opposed to $50 for 2 years here. Yeah. I mean, again, it's... Do you think California has to do that to get people to stay? Or, sorry, Florida? Nope. I've really come to view it all as relationships. Florida is, I mean, if you're a gal, and I see it from a stereotypical gender perspective, and that usually if there's the guy, usually, not always, there are a lot of toxic chicks out there, but when you see the really dangerous situations, more times than not it's the guy. And I see Florida, like the really cool guy doesn't put pressure on you. You know, you start dating and he wants you to meet his friends and wants you to hang out when you want to hang out. You want to have your own career, do your own thing? Cool, you do your own thing. We're two independent people, but hey, we want to hang out together, be together, have a life together. That's awesome with me. Family likes you. Your family likes him. You know, you just think, sure, every once in a while we might have a little hiccup, but ultimately, I mean, we are a real great partnership. We both want to be in the relationship. Neither one of us manipulates the other to stay in it. That's what living in Florida is like. Florida's that boyfriend. Then you look at New York or California. Beats you down, takes advantage of you, kind of living off of you. You know, you're the one going out, you're the breadwinner, but constantly spending your money. Always demanding to know who you're with. Jealous. I mean, if you ever want to spend time with anyone else, they're going to be all over that. And don't you ever think about leaving. No one can ever love you the way that I do. Start gaslighting you. Making you believe that you're not worthy, making you believe you can't have it any better. Start isolating you from your family and your social network. That's what California's like as a boyfriend. And that's why you see so many people dump their boyfriends of California and get the new boyfriend like Florida or Texas or Tennessee. Pyramid Roofing Company text line: Florida, big peninsula energy. Yep, got that too. And let's see, I thought I saw another one. Don't forget, talking about the security at concerts again, don't forget when you go to those venues, you have to have a clear backpack or a purse. Everything must be transparent so you can see exactly what people are bringing into the venue. Yeah. Making the point earlier that these rich celebrities demand levels of security far beyond what a normal person would expect, yet when it comes to our border, they demand that be wide open. I want to share with you a story about the Democrat convention up in Michigan. As Republicans, it becomes very frustrating when we want voter integrity. We just want to make sure, like, one vote, one person, and it's my vote when I vote, not somebody else voting in my name. Just want it fair. Just want it fair. And most of the time, the opposition to that is the Democrat Party. And so we tend to stereotype Democrats as benefiting from problems with voting, whether it's deliberate voter fraud or just incompetency. And Democrats usually just plead incompetent. When you're talking about a Democrat primary or a Democrat convention, there is a bit of satisfaction there as someone who's not a Democrat, watching them do this to each other. The New York Post reporting. Some Michigan Democrats are calling for a recount after numerous voting irregularities were discovered following their endorsement convention earlier this month. The vote by phone convention, as if that right there isn't a problem, in Detroit resulted in more than 200 ineligible votes being cast. So what? You can't disenfranchise those voters. It also resulted in multiple people using the same phone number to cast ballots and some votes not being counted. I mean, it's a perfect Democrat-run election. You got people voting multiple times. You have some people voting and finding out that their vote never was even counted. Democrat State Senator Sylvia Santana's campaign alleged in a filing calling for an audit and a recount. The filing obtained by the Detroit News contends there were material errors in the convention's vote counting process. Santana's campaign claims Michigan Democrat Party leadership failed to enforce a rule requiring people to be at the meeting in person to vote, and that the lawmaker would have won the nomination for a Michigan State University Board of Trustees spot had ballots cast from outside Detroit's Huntington Place Convention Center not been counted. The Democrat Party failed to fulfill, quote, its responsibility of running a procedurally fair and transparent convention that complies with its own rules and regulations, thereby making it difficult, if not impossible, to honor the results of the convention. Yes, I know what you're thinking. This is the same party that with their national convention did a call-in vote before the actual convention to anoint Kamala Harris, making the actual convention irrelevant. So how, after a Democrat lawmaker goes through that and then is shocked and surprised whenever the state Democrat Party in Michigan has a similar joke of a convention, it's pretty entertaining. Santana's appeal alleges that 302 voters were not even on the party's voting list, and a whopping 208 people shared the same cell phone number with at least one other voter, including 6 members attached to a single phone number, which allowed people to cast multiple votes. At least 16 cases of votes being recorded incorrectly or not being recorded at all were discovered as well. Location data examined by Santana's campaign found more than 200 votes were cast from outside the convention center. Now, that location data is the same location data that was utilized. You may have seen the Dinesh D'Souza documentary. I know we did a showing of it or attended a showing of it. I don't remember if we actually hosted it. And there was, this was during the Trump-Biden election, and there was this location data that was utilized in order by way of cell phones to show people that were visiting the drop boxes one after another, and watching their patterns of behavior and transportation was demonstrating something nefarious was going on. Now, of course, we were told that that was very unreliable. It's extremely unreliable. Apparently, that form of investigative power, or tool rather, is no longer unreliable because a Democrat is using it. So 200 of the votes were, according to that data, cast from outside the convention center, which means the candidate who came in third would have actually won by 50 votes if the ineligible ballots weren't counted. The Attorney General of Michigan, Dana Nessel, a Democrat, expressed support for Santana's call for an audit. saying, I learned in the days immediately following the convention that the Election Buddy app did not correctly attribute my votes or my congressional district, and I immediately notified the impacted candidate and the state party's chair, Nessel said in a statement. Oakland County prosecutor Karen McDonald, who lost the party's nomination for attorney general at the convention, similarly endorsed an audit. Now, the reason this really does have serious implications is because this is a convention in which the party decides, by way of delegates voting, who actually gets to run. This is how they pick the candidates, saying, okay, you're going to get to run on the ballot in the general election under our name. And a lot of these individuals are noting that we're running for some of these offices that when you look at the data, I won. But I was cheated out of it. This is, 1,000 times over, when Democrats run elections, this is what you get. And it may not be the right thing, it may not be the ethical thing, but after being on the receiving end as a voter over and over and over again and getting screwed over by this sort of stuff, watching Democrats do it to their own, there's something just a tad bit satisfying there. I want a great homeloan.com. All of your home loan needs, one place, couple folks, and a team. The Carrickers, Alex Carricker, Anthony Carricker. Refinancing, reverse mortgage. You may have heard of that, but thought, well, that's just for retired people who own their home outright. No, that's not necessarily the case. So if you want to find out where you are when it comes to home loans or refinancing, you may be at a point to refinance. I'm telling you, the experts, the Carrickers, the team, use them as a resource. Use them for informational purposes. And time again, they tell stories, and I hear stories from you all of reaching out. And, sometimes you're like, yeah, we found out we're in a pretty good place right now. But oftentimes, man, we had no idea that we actually could refinance and save. I want a great homeloan.com because you do. A taxpayer-funded water park in a Texas city has sparked online fury after announcing they would openly discriminate against non-Muslims to celebrate an Islamic holiday. As the Daily Mail reported, Epic Waters in Grand Prairie released flyers for a June 1st event celebrating the Muslim holiday Eid al-Adha. The event will require a modest dress code and serve halal slaughtered meat only. Epic Waters, funded by an additional sales tax on Grand Prairie residents, will essentially resemble a hardcore Islamic country rather than the great state of Texas. The event will follow the modest dress code and practice modesty through respectful behavior. Attendees expected to dress in accordance with Islamic values. All swimwear must meet Muslim guidelines. Glenn Beck coming up next. I'm Nick Reed.